Okay, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and I think it's quite important, this European, Switzerland, and Georgia connection, and so it's a great pleasure to me for discovering the country, and also it's interesting for me to discover the topic of the Biennial, to correct mistake. I think it's something that I feel connected with the topic, because in my work I always been critical. So when I receive something, I always try to be critical about what is happening, and my critique is always involving science. I have to say that. So the critique should not be against science. I think that we made some mistake, and I was interested into the story of the historical materialism, and to understand why at one moment we have transformed the nature in order to create more food, more energy, for having a more good society. So this was the goal, the target of the 20th century, but of course it created a lot of mistake, and this is what is happening today. So we have to understand the mistake, and from an ecological point of view, from a scientific point of view, and also to correct them from this point of view, and not only from a political point of view, I think. So I will just present my work in two phases. Thank you very much. In two phases. So the first phase is we published a book in 2002, Physiological Architecture. It was for we represent Switzerland at the Venice Biennial in 2002. And at that moment, in reality, it was a moment when internet arrived, the mobile phone, the computer. So it was not like that before, and we start to receive a lot of wavelengths, wavelength from the phone, from the screen, so some new type of light. And we were not really interested into what was happening inside the computer, but more what was a consequence as an architectural point of view of this new window, because the screen of a computer is a kind of window with a certain type of light coming from that, going to the eyes, and so we try to integrate these new techniques, new technology that was arriving at that moment, and to be critic with that, and so the idea was to say, okay, when we are designing space architecture, it's not only the solid. The solid in reality is just catching a certain amount of air, of light. But why we cannot work directly on the light, on the air, on the temperature, on the humidity, and because normally this is sometimes it's something that is not designed by architects. It's more like a lighting company that is deciding with the type of wavelength emitted by the light or things like that. So we introduced at that moment the idea of that architecture is also physiological, so it means it's also concerning the space itself, and the relationship to the space is linked to the physiology of the human body. So the Swiss pavilion was called Hormonorium, and we work on two traditional elements of architecture. We work on light and space, but we didn't look at that from an aesthetic point of view, but from a physiological point of view. And first, we challenge the light. The light is a very traditional element of architecture. We say it's shadow and light, and we are designing space with different type of light. But here we look to the physiological response of the human body through light, and at that moment it was a huge quantity of research about melatonin. Now it's quite well known, because in the smartphone now you have this kind of programs that block the blue light during the night. You have this kind of yellow light, but that was in 2000 the moment when this type of research were made. And here we can see that during the night you have a lot of secretion of melatonin inside the blood. So it's an hormone that is related with sleep. And during the day, you have no melatonin. And there is some other hormones that are linked to day and night and to circadian rhythm. And so we can see that the lack of light, the melatonin starts to grow. And we know that it's linked to the pineal gland. So when the light arrives on the eyes, so it's blocked the secretions through the pineal gland. And some experiments were made in 1980. So it was during the night, and someone turned on the light, and you can see that the level of melatonin fall down. So it's why they were connecting this type of sleep and melatonin secretion linked to the light quantity. And so from that, we wanted to work on this question of the physiology of the human body and the relation to the light. The second point was about the space itself, and here we were challenging the type of air that was in the space. And we can see that less there is oxygen in the air, more the human body is producing EPO, erythropoietin. It's another type of hormone, and this hormone is multiplying the blood cell, the red cell, and so it brings more quickly the oxygen to the muscle and to everything. And so in reality, when you go in the high mountain, you have a lack of oxygen, so the oxygen is 21% on the sea level. When you go at 3,000 meters of altitude, it's 14%. And so this is what we are reproduce inside the Swiss pavilion. So we transform, maybe you know the pavilion, it's on the right at the entrance of the Venice Biennial. And so in the big room, so we didn't make really something about in the visual way. You know, it was nothing it was absolutely not narrative. It was not symbolic. It was not metaphorical. It was purely working on the real quality of the space. And so for that, we have decreased the quantity of oxygen by adding more nitrogen in the air from 21% to 14%. And we have increased the level of light from to 10,000 lux. So in reality, it was quite strong. You know, it was the light was blocking the melatonin, and the lack of oxygen was creating erythropoietin. So in reality, it was like rebuilding the mountain condition, because it was like when you go at 3,000 meters and there is a glacier or snow. You know, it's this type of real atmospheric parameter. And so we were like building the mountain, like representing Switzerland, but not in an aesthetic way, but in a kind of physiological way. And for us, from an architectural point of view, and this is quite important to understand, what we wanted to say was that architecture is not only in the symbolic or the visual or the narrative, it's also in the toxicity of the air or the type of wavelengths that arrive on the eye. So in reality, there is also a question of health, of pollution, or climatic issue, and we cannot say that it doesn't exist and say, okay, it's just the job of the engineer. We don't, or the light engineer, the light market that are deciding for us what type of wavelengths are emitted by the lamp. So we wanted to reintroduce this type of quality of space inside the discourse of the architecture. So the space was quite strong in terms of visually too, because in reality it was very bright, so we were losing all the edges of the space, and we were like a little floating in the space. And of course it go also deeper in the body through the hormone secretion of melatonin and erythropoietin. And then we in the bench we asked to the French band Air to make the music, and so they made some skeleton music. So it was only infrasound music, and so moving inside the body. And from that idea, we made a cafe in Taiwan. And so we work for this cafe on saying that maybe as an architect you are designing space, but you can also design time. And for this cafe, we work on three different type of time linked to melatonin. So we know that today it's more clear that the blue light is blocking the melatonin. The yellow light is letting the melatonin going, so it means you can sleep with a yellow light, and the blue light is like a day. And so so we made like three space. One was a kind of perpetual night with yellow light, and one is a perpetual day, and one is a natural day and light cycle. And so you can move from day to night. So this is a kind of little like challenging the idea of architecture is not space, but it's also an hormonal challenge, and it's also talking about time fabrication. So this is a cafe today. Then in 2005, I moved to Paris, and so this is a recent monography we made in last November, and so the idea of where all my work have moved from this physiological to a more climatic work was to understand that climate is at the base of architecture. In reality, why we need building, it's because the human body it has 37 degrees Celsius, and we always need to keep this 37 degrees Celsius. When it's too cold, we cannot survive, like in the snow in December in the glacier, and when it's too warm, we cannot survive. So there is some story in the Christian Bible. There is Adam and Eve living in the paradise naked, without architecture, without clothes, and when they are fired from the paradise, they arrive to the earth where there is some rain and coolness and things like that. And at that moment, they can no more live naked. They have to place clothes on them and to build houses. And this story is, if you read Vitruvius or Alberti, some treatises, old treatises of architecture, they are always talking about that the first reason of architecture is to build a roof against the sun, and then you understand that building a wall will protect you from the cold wind, and then if you close everything, you can have a fire, and then it could be warm inside the bubble of air you are encapsulating inside all the wall and the ceiling. So this is a very basic reason of architecture, and this is why we need building, and I think it's quite important to understand that fundamental reason. And then today there is a problem, a consequence problem with architecture is the global warming. So the temperature are rising, and it's linked to the CO2 emission. This is before, what was happening. It was during the day the sun was emitting energy on the earth, and then during the night the earth was releasing infrared to the outer space. But the CO2 in reality is opaque of this infrared coming back from the earth to the outer space at 15 micrometer, and so it's why it starts to overheat on the planet. And when we look from where are coming these CO2 emission, we see that 39% are coming from the building. So it means that we, as architects, we are responsible in for a big part of the global warming. So we have to be conscious about that and to place that in a very important way. And so now we understand, okay, the fundamental reason, the cause of architecture is climatic, the consequence is climatic, so why we cannot use tools, climatic tools for designing, composing architecture? Why instead of using symmetry, why we cannot use convection? Or instead of geometry, why we cannot use evaporation? Or instead of using metaphor or narrative, maybe we can use emissivity or effusivity. So this is some project I would like to present where the physical and climatic phenomena are at the base of the design. So convection, this is the fact that hot air is moving up when you have you know the cold air is more heavy than the warm air. So there is always a stratification of the air that move up like in a convective movement. So very often when you build a house, for example, it's super hot under the ceiling and very cold on the foot level. And when it's cold, because you are cold on the foot, you turn on the radiator more, but it's always heating more the ceiling and it's still cold there. So from that we start to say what we can do for challenging that. So there is some Swiss recommendation for the winter that propose to warm the bathroom at 22 degrees Celsius because you are naked and maybe you have some water, and so the cooling effect will be stronger. And living room at 20 because you are motionless in the sofa. And kitchen, you are moving a little the body because more you are moving, you are producing your own energy by moving your muscle. And then the bedroom, you are under the blanket, so it can be 16. And then toilet corridor can be at 15 degrees Celsius because you just go through. So, so this is like, by doing like that, you can reduce a lot of energy consumption during the winter. Because you know, if all the bedrooms are at 16 and not 22 like it is in Switzerland, so you can economize a lot and reduce the CO2 emission. So from that, in reality, if you look from an architectural point of view, it means that you need to create a room with door in between two rooms, because if you have the bedroom at 16 degrees Celsius and the bathroom at 22 degrees Celsius and the door is open in between the two, so it will mix together, and so it's like hot water and cold water, so at the end it will be 19 everywhere, and then it's too cold, so it will be 22 everywhere at the end. So it shows that, okay, we can no more have a free plan, like an open plan, like a modern open plan. We need to come back to the 19th century rooms with corridor, with a door, like that. But maybe we can do something else by using convection. And this is what we have proposed in an exhibition at the Louisiana Museum in Denmark. And this is something that we are using in a lot of projects. This is by saying, okay, in reality, why we cannot place the program according to the space and convection movement. So in reality, the bathroom, we need more heat, so let's go to under the ceiling. And the bedroom, we don't need a lot of heat, so let's go down. And let's use the space as a kind of atmosphere where we can place the program inside the different altitude of the space. And this is what we have proposed, like a kind of economical project to say, okay, let's place where we are naked very close to the ceiling, so it will be super hot there, and we can go down with a living room here and down with a bedroom here, and then we have the toilet there. And so this is this type of using this convective idea to design the space. Here, this is a competition we made based on on convection. This is for a university building, and this it's interesting to look back before air conditioning, before central heating system, because in some old building. Some climatic phenomena were used for cooling or warming the building. Here, this is a very famous Villa Rotonda, and I have to say that when I was student, it was always presented like a beautiful aesthetic building, and everybody was talking about the proportion, the cycle, the square, and it was very esoteric. In the way of talking about this building, but by reading Palladio, because Palladio writes some books, and Palladio explained that in reality this is the south here, this is the north here, and he just say, okay, during the winter the people have to look for the sun, so they will go here, so the morning they will be here and the afternoon here, and then for the winter they are escaping from the heat, so they go to the north. And so for the morning they can be here at the west, and for the afternoon they can go to the east, so they will be always in the shadow. And then he explained also that he aligned all the door and the window to let the wind going through, to create some wind movement for cooling the space. And then he create this space in the middle that is protected from the sun by the portico. And you can see that there is a huge cupola, and the idea of the cupola is to remove the hot air. You know, it's the hot air is moving up, so you open the button, you open up, and then the hot air is moving out, and so you can keep cold down, and bring the fresh water down, and he cool it in the underground by geothermal cooling, and this cold air arrives from here. There is and the hot air is going out from the dome. So this is a stone where the cold air is arriving from the underground, and then the hot air is go out. So so this is quite important today to look to this kind of old solution before mechanical or before fossil energy system. And for this competition, we made something quite similar here with this building. We got the third prize for the project, not the first, but okay. And so for the spring, we just proposed to open the window and to have a dome in the middle to let the hot air going out. So it's like that, you open and it go out here. And but then we propose to not only talk about climate and techniques of ventilation and cooling and warming only from a technical point of view, but also to combine some social and public quality of space. So it's why we say we will create a very hot area up, so it can be like winter garden. And so it will be very comfortable for the winter to go there, and it becomes the winter public space. And then for the summer, we propose to go to the underground and to create an underground space that can become like a living room, like a social place. And here, for that, I can show here what the building is located on the lake of Geneva, and so the lake is just 3 meters under, because it was originally the lake was arriving here, but they placed some new earth on the lake, and so there is this underground water. And so what we have proposed is to during the winter it can be like that, but during the summer we let the water going under the underground, and so we create a kind of internal lake, indoor lake, and this lake will have this capacity of cooling by like a water pipe, like an narghile, you know, when it's go down, and so it go by geothermy it's go down, and then by evaporation, when there is a change from liquid to gas, it's cool the air. So we use that for cooling the air, and then the air naturally will move up and then go out, and so this is all the ventilation. So for the plan, we can see that we create a little like Palladio. We create this walking grid where the air will pass through to all the floor, and we have the different programs that arrive there. Yeah. Now, some project based on effusivity. Effusivity, this is a capacity when you touch an object, you feel it cold or you feel it warm, and so this is a link to the exchange of energy between the skin and the material you are touching by conduction, and depending of the coefficient of effusivity of the material, it can be a very fast exchange, so it will cool the space, or very low exchange. So I will start with that. So this type of effusivity, when you read some old treatises, when they talk about marble in Italy, for example, they are talking about the cooling effect of the marble. So for us, for my generation, marble was only to be rich. You use marble to show that you are a rich guy and you have marble bathroom. But in reality, for the Italian, it was like a cooling material, and it's written like that, it's explained like that, because there is a high effusivity capacity. So when you touch marble, you feel it cold. And then, of course, if during the winter or in Germany, so you will have some wool, because the effusivity of the wool is very low, so it means that you have no heat exchange with that. So this is what we have proposed here for this project. We have we won the competition. It's for the transformation of this part of the national radio in Paris, and so the program was to make a cafe, a theater, a bookstore, and some other public program, and so we start to analyze, to talk, to think about the cafe, and we say what will be the good place the good location to place the cafe, and so for the winter, so we made this model of light, and so it's a kind of average of the light during the year. So in red there is a lot of light, and in blue there is no light. And so we say, okay, during the winter it will be good to go where there is a lot of light, and during the summer it will be good to go where there is no light, where there is shadow. So finally, the cafe, there is not one good position for the cafe. There is gradation of position depending of the moment of the day or the moment of the year. So we following the computer model of the light, we create some line, and then we materialize this line with thermal effusivity. So we say during the winter it will be very good to have wool, and during the summer it will be very good to have steel or to have a marble. So finally, we place a gradation of different material like that, going from the most light with a lot of sun area where we place wool, and so it will be super good to go there in the winter, and then it go to the wood and to the rubber, and then we arrive to the summer area where everything is made in marble and steel for cooling effect. Okay, I will pass very quickly on that, on conduction. Conduction, it's you know, you have to place thermal insulation, like 25 centimeters of thermal insulation in order to reduce use of energy for warming or also for cooling with air conditioning. And here we challenge the position of the composition of the facade by saying that you know, a normal facade, an old facade, we can say there is a wall and there is inside and outside. But the contemporary facade is made of a lot of different material. There is a thermal insulation, there is a vapor barrier, there is a waterproof membrane, there is maybe a protection of the waterproof membrane, and there is some plaster. So it's made of a lot of and load-bearing structure. So a lot of things. And here, in this project, we have proposed to move the different layer to create space in between the different layers. For example, we say all the corridor or the toilet or the storage can be protected from water, but not from heat, from the heat. So we place them in between the thermal insulation and the waterproof layer, but not inside the thermal insulation where there is air conditioning. So it was a project in Taiwan in a hot climate. And then we create this, this gap. We split all the facade in different layers. So for example, the red is the thermal insulation, and you can see it's go like that. And the waterproof is go like that. So here it's only waterproof, it's no more thermal insulation. And so this is how we design this space. And then when we enter the building, so we enter the first waterproofing, and then we go to in between the waterproof and the thermal insulation, and then we move to the thermal insulation inside that. And for this building, we create 3 rooms. So it was like cooling rooms, like the coolium that was reproducing the mountain. So it was like a cold space, public space. And then we have the dryum that was reproducing a kind of 21 of November that is dry and not too hot. And then the clearium that was reproducing the climate of Taichung in Taiwan without air pollution and without global warming. So we were reducing the temperature inside of 1.4 degrees Celsius and removing the pollutant of the space. And the last project on the radiation. So it's here. This is for a museum in Arles in France for the Fondation Luma. So we designed an exhibition for this 2,700 square meter, and you can see that there is some window on the roof. So we analyze the light, and depending on the type of artwork, it can receive more or less light. And so, for example, the photographic paper can receive only 50 lux. Oil painting can receive 200 lux. So we say we will analyze first the natural lighting inside, the incoming light, and then we will work on the reflecting light, and we will create a diversity of space depending of the natural incoming of light. So we can see here here it's more in the shadow, in the blue, and then this is in the morning, at noon, and in the afternoon, and then all together it's create that. And so we say if we want to show some video, it will be better to show where it's already dark, and if we want to show some photographic paper, it would be good to place them here, and maybe the painting can be here. So we follow the natural lighting to place to create the space. So this is a line coming from the software, and then we transform that into into scenography of floor and wall, and then so it was like that inside with this. We place white floor to increase the light, and where it's already full of light, and where there is no light. So and then there is a gradation from white to light gray, dark gray, and then it go to here. And so the ambition is here also to decrease the consumption of electricity for that by using natural light. And I will finish by presenting urban project. A project we made in Taiwan. So this project, we won the competition in 2011, and it is interesting for me because in reality, in 2011, the problem of the heat in the city was not so accurate than today. And today, the European cities are suffering from heat. You know, during the summer there is heat wave, and this is the main problem of the city today. So in France, all the cities like Bordeaux, Lyon, Aix-en-Provence, Paris, they are all trying to find solution for cooling the city because it's becoming too hot now. And so the knowledge we got from Taiwan that was already warm, already a tropical climate, is quite useful today, because in reality the solution of the south have to move to the north today in order to cool the city during the summer. So this is what is happening today. We can see that heat waves are becoming more and more important. The temperature is becoming more high. The temperature, especially in the city with the urbanite island effect, is becoming very, very strong because you know the building are blocking the wind, so the wind is blocked on the building and go out in the sky, so it doesn't cool by convection by the street, and so it's the street become warmer and warmer without air renewal, and then the black surface, the albedo effect, make them becoming very warm too, and then there is a problem of the flood. We can see that it's increasing more and more, and with the global warming it will increase more and more because the air is more hot, so it can contain more vapor, and so when there is some rain, there is big rain, and so it's arrive and make flood. And then there is also some problem of pollution, you have this PM 2.5 pollution that is a cancerous particle, so this is something. So maybe this type of problem are driving more and more the urban design today, and so in the same way, my proposal is to use the physical element as urban language. For example, to say convection is a new perspective, or albedo is a new symbolism, or wind is a new brick. So, like to move from more solid and aesthetic element to a more meteorological or more climatic element. So, I'm presenting the project we won in Taiwan in 2011. So, it's a park for a new district of 260 hectares, and the park is 70 hectares. So it starts from here and it's finishing here, and it's on the site of an old airport in Taichung in Taiwan. And so the urban design is a little similar to New York. So there is this central park, and then all around it will be built, so now it's under construction. And so for making the master plan of the park, we move to the fundamental reason of doing park. And so maybe you can find in the text of Olmsted or Alphand, so during the 19th century when they were designing park, Alphand, the landscape designer of Haussmann, that made all the park in Paris, the reason why they were making park was to clean the city, because they were thinking that the trees was cleaning the air. It was not true, but this was the idea at that time. And then to cool. So, and Olmsted, the landscape designer of Central Park in New York, you know, the first reason for doing the park was for sanitary reason, for cleaning the air and giving a good air for the people in New York. And so this is this idea of green lung to clean the air for that. And so this type of idea disappeared completely during the 20th century. Of course, it disappeared. We know that the cooling effect of the park maybe disappear with air conditioning. We know that there is a lot of story about you know, people, they were more gathering outside during the night, going in the park before air conditioning, and then after 1950 they just turn on the air conditioning and they stay at home, you know, and then the cleaning effect of the air, it was a mistake, because they were thinking that the CO2 was a toxic, was bringing disease, but in reality no tuberculosis and no cholera was cleaned by the trees. It was a wrong idea, but there is this idea of cleaning that, and of course antibiotic and vaccine that arrived in 1950 absolutely remove all this hygienic reason to the park. And so it's for example, the park made by Bernard Tschumi in Paris, the Parc de la Villette, is you know, the brief of the competition was completely against this hygienist park of the 19th century. So they say we have to build a social park and absolutely not a hygienist park. And of course it was like that because of the antibiotic that was absolutely more efficient than a park. And so but for us we came back to this type of original idea of the park, and we say we will do a park in Taiwan. It's hot and humid. We will do a park that can cool, dry, and depolluting. So, and for doing that, we work on different phenomena. So this is like the cooling effect, the drying effect, and the depolluting effect. And for cooling, we work on convection. So in reality, what the climatic engineer, they call perceived temperature, you know, if it is warm or cold, it's depending of the temperature of the air, but also the radiation of the sunlight, the indirect radiation of the wall, the humidity of the air, the wind, and here everywhere is the same temperature or the same sun, but in reality one parameter is not the same. This is the wind, because there is a north wind that is coming very often, and so but this wind is increased by the future building, and so we made what is called computational fluid dynamic model. So it's analyzing the speed of the air. So in red it's a very fast wind, in blue it's a slow wind, and from that we say yes, it will be more comfortable to be here when it's super hot, because you have this cooling effect of the fan that will be there. So we transform this map into a plan, and we say here it's colder, here it's warmer. And then we materialize this map with trees by doubling the cooling effect of the wind movement with the shadow of the trees. So it was like the first map, and then we have the cold path that is always under the shadow, and we give some quality, some identity to the most cold area in the past, calling them the Kulia, the Western Kulia, the Northern Kulia. And so the choice of the trees was linked to that. We choose trees with a lot of leaf or with big leaf. And the choice of the ground was also a choice of cooling ground with a lot of evaporation or high albedo or material. And then the second layer was about water management and humidity. So the brief of the competition was about the sponge city of 2000 from the Chinese. In China, you know, they have developed this idea of that the water should be absorbed on site before going in the pipe and evaporate on site. So it was on the brief, and also that no material should come or should go out from the space. And so this is how the park, the topography was made by creating some basin of when there is a big rain. So when there is a normal rain, it's like that, and a big rain and exceptional rain is like that. So it was absorbing by the topography of the space. And then so we can see here the park with the flood. And then where it's more dry, it's more comfortable for the human because you can sweat more, and by sweating you can lose heat. And so we place all the sport activity in the most dry area, and we manage this dry area also by using some very high drainage material. So it means that you know, the Kulia have a special type of trees and special type of ground, and the Drya have a special type of trees and ground, so it gives an identity. So the identity is not an idea coming from my imagination to say, okay, it will be red, or here it will be round, or here it will be a blue square, but it's coming from the climatic and physical material we are placing there. And then we have the pollution, and so far from the road we have the most clean area, and we reinforce that by placing a lot of trees. So there is some trees that can absorb a little the pollutant. It's not very efficient, but the resinous trees or the hairy leaf can trap a little the PM 2.5 and some pollutant. And then the program is following that. So in the most clean area, we place all the children activity, the playground, that find location in this clean area there. And this is this type of trees we have selected for cleaning the air and the type of depolluting material for the ground. And then all together, it creates, we can see in red the cooling trees, in blue the drying trees, in gray the depolluting trees, and all together it creates a diversity of climate. It creates a microclimate, and so it can be cool, humid, polluted, or cool, dry, clean. You know, so you have a diversity, and so depending of your personality, you can go where you want. Depending of the moment of the day, maybe during the winter at 6 p.m. it will be better to go in a hot area, and at noon it will be better. In summer it will be better to go in a very dense forest, cold area, windy area there. And this is how the park is designed. So this is this idea of designing with the climate. So first we have the climate, and then we find the form, and then we find the function. So it's like a function follow form follow climate. It's no more like form follow function, but like a form follow climate. And then this is a park under construction. So, and just to finish on that, you know, we have also some devices that are proposing to cool by geothermal cooling, blowing cold air. So it's like a cold shower of air. And then we have we cool also by evaporation. So this is like this kind of cloud. And when there is some water, liquid water, that is transforming into gas, so it's reduce the temperature of the air, so we can cool. And then we have this type of cold light, so we select the most cold, where there is less energy in the visible spectrum. It's here, you know, in the violet. So this is, we just keep the violet light because this is the coldest quantity of energy coming from the light. And finally, we produce all the electricity on site. So we have 7,000 square meters of photovoltaic panel there, and it's used for, it's more energy than what we are using in the park, but all the buildings are using that. Also all the device and the night lighting. And for that, because the sun is quite strong, it's very hot, so we propose to create like not only a technical photovoltaic panel, but to create like a landscape under, and some building and some a car park that find a location under this photovoltaic panel. And then every 50 meters we have a sensor, and this sensor is measuring in real time the climate, the heat, humidity, and the pollution. And so with that, it creates a map, and in real time you can have access on where you are and what is the climate and what is the temperature, and so you can move inside the park in the most clean area or the most cold area or most dry, so you can adapt your the way you are moving in the park with that. So thank you very much, and if you have some questions.